Okay, I have a prophetic word for, I believe, two preachers. And because I know different preachers listen to me. Um, Although it might not be about preachers, but I'm inclined to believe it's about preachers. It's a dream that I had that was very short, and it kept on coming back to me in flashbacks throughout the day. So it's the end of the day right now. It came back to me in flashbacks about 3 or 4 times today. And I was just like, yeah, there's just not like enough Christian themes in this dream for me to count it as a prophetic word, because I like to have blatantly biblical, blatantly theological themes in dreams before I start to even come close to considering them as prophetic dreams. But after I talked it over with my wife, we came to the conclusion that it was a prophetic dream, and it does have prophetic biblical symbolism in it. So I'm going to cast this dream interpretation out as a prophetic word in faith, hoping that it'll hit its mark. And first off, just by simply telling the dream. I dreamed that I was out on an inlet into off of an ocean. And normally, in real life, you're going to have like a lighthouse that's real firm and tall on the land. And the lighthouse will go up real high up, and it'll have a firmly fixed foundation and everything. But in this dream, that wasn't the case. There was a lighthouse that was on a buoy, and it was about 50 feet tall. It was a 50-foot tall lighthouse, maybe 40 feet tall. I mean, it was a tiny little lighthouse, and it was on a buoy, and the waves were really, really choppy. I mean, scary choppy. 4 foot, 5 foot waves, and this thing was going back and forth like a pendulum, back and forth, back and forth. And there was a light at the top that went around on it, and there were two men dressed in what I would have to say looked like captain outfits, and they were in the top of this buoy slash lighthouse going back and forth on the choppy waters, just kind of back and forth like a grandfather clock pendulum. Okay, they were trying to just keep themselves from falling over, and they were up in this room at the top, in this glass room, the two guys, and that was all there was to it. And I was trying to come up with an interpretation for this, and I was just, I like to see Jesus in my dreams. I like to see the cross or a church or a pastor or some Christian I know, or the Bible or a Bible verse in my dreams. I mean, there was nothing. There was nothing overtly Christian or Bible or church related in this dream. So I just kind of like blew it off, but it came back to me 3 and 4 times today, and that was unusual. It came back to my memory. And so I finally told my wife at the end of the day about it, and she's like, oh, no. Here's a symbol aspect, and here's a symbol aspect. I was like, okay. So here's what I think this means. There are two people that have been listening to me on Wesley Gospel, and you may or may not be a minister. I don't know. But I'm inclined to believe that those two guys at the top of the unstable lighthouse buoy were ministers, because of what the purpose of a lighthouse is and a lighthouse worker is. The purpose of a lighthouse is to help ships safely in and out of harbors, and to warn mariners of dangerous areas like shallows, reefs, and rocky coasts. In other words, warning and safety and warning against danger is the primary purpose of a lighthouse worker. The concept of the watchman on the wall came in. The prophet is a watchman on the wall to look out for for danger. And I believe in Bible times they didn't have lighthouses, but they had torches, and the security guards, they would be watchmen on the wall, and if there was something dangerous going on, they would light a torch, and it would be a signal. Lighthouses, I'm reading this stuff off of Google here. Lighthouses are emergency locations where people can stop for help. Many lighthouses have helicopter pads and docks for rescue agencies to land on. Some stations also have aviation fuel on hand so that helicopters don't need to go to an airport to refuel. Lighthouses are a part of our nation's heritage and have been guiding mariners for over 2,000 years. So they're to provide guidance. They're to provide warning. They're to provide warning signals. But here's the problem. Although the main purpose of a lighthouse is to warn boats about danger and to provide navigation, this lighthouse I saw and the two men in it were unstable, and they were about to fall over because the thing was going back and forth like a buoy and was not on a stable foundation. In other words, these guys couldn't do their job. They couldn't warn anybody out there out on the ships out there. And what would the ships represent? Well, the ships could represent families. And I think that the lighthouse workers could represent pastors, watchmen on the wall, prophets. But you see, these two prophets, these two watchmen on the wall, their lighthouse, I believe, which represents their church or their ministry, was unstable. And it was going back and forth, and it was so unstable that the preachers or the prophets or the watchmen or whatever it was they were so unstable on their feet that they were just focused on trying to get themselves to be able to stand upright. And so the last thing on their minds was, I got to warn all the people out there. And here's what I believe it means. If you're a preacher, your job is to be a watchman on the wall, to warn the dads in your church about sin and danger so that they can guide their ships safely in and out of harbor. And if you're unstable, okay, what does that mean? I think I have the meaning. James 1, 5-7. James 1, 5-7 says this: If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. So I believe this is about pastors who are doubting about stuff, doubting so much that they can't even be a watchman on the wall and warn the dads of families and warn the husbands about sin and danger that they see in these families, because there's doubt and they're being blown and tossed by the wind, and they're afraid. What I believe this could be money related. This could be Bible related. This could be not wanting to preach against sin and warn about hell related. There are dangers in these people's families that you can see, but you're unstable and you're doubting, and it's out of the fear that you have. You're not warning and being that watchman on the wall that you need to be. You're blown and tossed by the wind. So you have to ask God and go for broke and trust the Lord. And that's the word. God bless out there. This is John with WesleyGospel.com.